Elly De La Cruz and Sal Stewart have the opportunity to do something that's never been done in the history of the Cincinnati Reds.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I'm Jeff Carr, he's Steve Offenbaker, and on today's Locked On Reds podcast, a little bit later on, we're going to tell you why Brandon Phillips is getting the respect that he deserves, finally, from the Cincinnati Reds. In just a few minutes, we're going to discuss the turmoil that is about the fifth spot in the Cincinnati Reds rotation after another rough start from Brandon Williamson, and why the options are much more thin than we would like. But we will begin with the dynamic duo in the middle of the Reds lineup of Elly De La Cruz and Sal Stewart, who have absolutely been phenomenal to begin this season. And Steve, it's easy to really revel in on-pace numbers early on in the season. But we are kind of getting to that month checkpoint where it's like, all right, on-pace numbers aren't how the season will go, but they certainly paint a really fun picture. And especially when you're looking at both Elly De La Cruz and Sal Stewart, the numbers are getting really gaudy with what 2026 could look like.
Yeah, there's enough sample size now that you can make some informed decisions, some informed guesses as to about how the season could play out. And when you look at what we're seeing right now from Elly De La Cruz and from Sal Stewart, you can see that in the case of Elly De La Cruz, he is much better this year than he was last year. Clearly, the leg is healed. We talked yesterday about how the right-handed side of his game, the right-handed side of the plate, has grown by leaps and bounds, and he is really looking comfortable and doing some damage from the right side, where at times in the past, people were questioning whether or not he should even continue to be a switch hitter. So a marked improvement from Elly in the right-handed part of his game. And then you factor in Sal Stewart, who is now, a month into his rookie campaign, starts the season as this team's cleanup hitter, raised a lot of eyebrows, but he has done nothing but gone out every single day and delivered. And you look at the pitchers now trying to figure out how to adjust to Sal and not having much success doing so. I said yesterday, that's not going to hold all year long. Some of these pitchers are going to figure him out, and Sal's going to have to make adjustments, and it'll become that cat and mouse game. But right now, Sal Stewart has managed to hold off the pitchers being able to adjust to him. He just continues to go out there and wreak havoc. So you look at those two things happening simultaneously at 3 and 4 in the Reds lineup, factor in Gino hitting the ball and getting base hits and doing things we didn't necessarily expect that he would do in this Reds lineup. I mean, after yesterday's game, Eugenio Suarez still hitting .231 after going 0 for with a 0 for 4. So he's still up there a little bit better batting average wise than we thought he would be. The Reds right now sit at, as when you combine their 3, 4, and 5 hitters, they sit, 1, 2, or 3 in baseball in a lot of offensive statistical categories. So there's a lot of offense happening there. And specifically when you focus in on Elly and Sal, they have an opportunity to do things in this lineup for this team that in the history of the franchise haven't been done before.
Yeah, and it starts with their on-pace numbers. And look, there's a lot that's got to happen, including like no bad things compared to what's happened right now for them to hit these numbers. But they're really fun to look at because both Sal and Elly, at least going into Thursday's game, were on pace for 54 home runs. And Steve, the history that we know about this team, that would be a record because George Foster hit 52 back in 1977, and nobody has hit more as a Cincinnati Red. So we're talking about not one, but 2 guys could break that record if they hit their on-pace numbers. And Sal would go even further than that. Sal is on pace for 162 RBIs, which, of course, George Foster also set the record in 77 in that category with 149 RBIs. So that would be a kind of feat that I just don't know that he's capable of. But to be honest with you, before the season began, I was kind of selling him short already. I thought he'd hit like 20-something home runs. I don't think it is really hard at all to imagine him ending this season somewhere between 30 and 40 home runs, maybe even on the other side of 40 with the way that he hits the baseball.
Yeah, this is one of those things where sometimes we talk about, well, if you squint and turn your head and you do all the things, maybe you can see something happening. No, you don't
Turn
have to
lights down
squint.
low.
You don't have to try. You don't have to pretend that it could happen. Sal Stewart could hit 30 home runs this year. There's no doubt in my mind. Elly De La Cruz can hit 30 home runs this year. There is absolutely no doubt in my mind. That RBI total is going to be very dependent on what the guys above him continue to do. So Elly setting the table for him. Matt McLain figuring things out and being on base more. Now, Matt McLain's on base numbers have not been horrible, Jeff. I mean, you talk about what he's been able to do thus far in the season. He still has an on base right now on the season that is over 300. He's 327 on base for the 2026 season. So he's getting on base, drawing walks, getting on base. The leadoff situation has to get a little bit better, setting the table to allow Sal Stewart to hit those.
TJ's looking better, but yeah, for sure.
So there are going to be opportunities with 1 through 4 in this lineup, so that Sal Stewart does get an opportunity to get some of those statistics like the RBI total. There's one more projection that you didn't throw in there, because I do have some things to add. That ability for
the 40 steals
to set a record, the steals, because I said this yesterday. If you had Sal Stewart leading this team in steals on your bingo card at the beginning of the year, first off, you're a liar. Nobody had Sal Stewart as the team leader in stolen bases. Nobody did, but here we are.
Yeah, because as of right now, his on-base number for stolen bases is 40. And because he and Elly are right there at the same number, Elly's also at 40. And that would be crazy to see two guys go at least 40-40, because, he's not on pace for 50 steals. And while I think that comes down a little bit, and we already saw on on Wednesday afternoon's game, that Nick Martinez paid a little bit more attention because Sal had a single and was on first base at one point in this game. Nick Martinez actually threw over a couple of times. I think that Sal Stewart's stolen base numbers may come down a bit because people will actually start to take his stolen base prowess seriously. But we will still see him get more steals than I had him have. I didn't have him having more than 8 or 9. And I think at this point, he might get to 20.
I thought you were going to say he was going to have more steals than you would have. And I'm like, wow, there's a number that wasn't set for high. Listen, would it surprise you to learn that in the history of the Cincinnati Reds franchise, there has never been a season where 2 players in the same season were 40-40 guys? Would it surprise you to learn that? That's a pretty lofty number.
Makes sense.
Seems reasonable.
Yeah.
There has never been a season in the history of the Cincinnati Reds franchise where 2 guys have been 35-35 guys, or 30-30 guys, or 25-25 guys. You have to go all the way down to 2020 to get seasons where 2 guys have accomplished the feat in the same season. Most recently, 1996, Eric Davis and Barry Larkin. Before that, 1995, Ron Gant and Reggie Sanders. And then in 1990, Eric Davis and Chris Sabo. Those were all seasons where 2 players were 20-20 guys. So 25-25 seasons out of Sal and Elly, you've accomplished something that's never been done before in the history of the Cincinnati Reds. And then obviously, the higher those numbers go, the higher it's a case of never been done before.
I think the 25 is a good number because I kind of feel like that's where I still feel like his steals are going to come down. I just don't know that that's the sustainable part of his game. But even when you're on pace for 40 steals, 25 steals seems reasonable. Mm-hmm. And Elly is definitely going to be around 40. I think he's going to start to run more and more as the season gets along. But it's the fact that these guys are hitting the ball out of the park at the rate that they're doing that has opened up this possibility for them to set this kind of a pace and set this kind of a record, because you and I both said Elly could hit 30, but we don't feel as strongly about it as we do now, where it kind of feels like, 30 almost seems like an undersell for him, as does Sal.
I think it's very reasonable to say that you don't have to pretend or squint to see 25-25 seasons out of both of those guys. You don't have to squint too hard to see 30-30 seasons out of both those guys. Beyond that, I feel like maybe you're getting a little unrealistic, but I can see 25-25 out of both Elly De La Cruz and Sal Stewart. All right, Jeff, we do have to talk a little bit about yesterday's game because it didn't quite go well. Sweeps are hard, but there are some question marks arising that surround Brandon Phillips, and we're going to try and answer them coming up next.
If you've got a sweet tooth like I do, you know how tough it is to find the perfect treat without all the sugar. That's why Confetti Craze 5-Hour Energy Shots bring that nostalgic flavor back in a whole new way. This is that classic taste that you remember, but with that tasty caffeine boost and zero sugar. It's a quick, easy way to satisfy that sweet craving while keeping things simple and on the go. I've always loved birthday cake, but I can't be eating a piece of birthday cake every single day. You know, they always say an apple a day keeps the doctor away. Well, I'm pretty sure a piece of cake a day keeps you in the doctor like all the time. Confetti Craze 5-Hour Energy Shots taste just like birthday cake. Got that vanilla and the buttery flavors that you all love, but it lets you be unapologetically extra and unstoppably energized. It's become my go-to when I want something sweet without going overboard. The Funfetti flavor is back on 5hourenergy.com or on Amazon. Crack open Confetti Craze 5-Hour Energy Shot today.
While there are some questions around Brandon Phillips, I meant Brandon Williamson and the fifth spot in the rotation.
More so what Brandon Phillips is going to wear this week.
Listen, it's a one-day contract. It is a one-day contract, and he, by God, is going to pitch a game. That's what we're – no, I totally flubbed that. But listen, folks, we appreciate you being here every day, helping to make the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcasting network in all the land. Elevate your game. You can go ad-free and get ad-free Locked On Reds over on the audio side. Join the Everydayer Club. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/everydayer. $5 a month, $50 a year. You get ad-free Locked On Reds plus access to the Discord server that's not only Locked On Reds, but every single host on every single show for the entire network is in there talking ball. It is worth every penny. Check it out today. The link is also down in the show description. All right, Brandon Phillips notwithstanding, let's talk a little bit about Brandon Williamson and his start in yesterday's game and as a member of this Reds rotation. Because while there have been times that Brandon Williamson has looked like a good fifth starter and looked like a guy that belongs at the major league level and in the big league rotation, there have also been times where you can see why during spring training, there were lots of questions surrounding exactly what this team was going to do with Brandon Williamson, because he was a little bit of a different guy from start to start. He was lacking consistency. That is carried over. He still doesn't have it down pat. I was saying during show prep, Jeff, that, you never know. Is it going to be that good fifth starter guy, Brandon Williamson? Is it going to be the Brandon Williamson that gives you 4 innings of not really good baseball from the starting rotation slot? It's a coin flip. It's a coin flip every time he goes out there. The unfortunate truth of this situation, though, is that with injuries to Julian Aguilar and Chase Petty down in Louisville, we're kind of stuck with Brandon Williamson being the fifth guy in this rotation until such time that Nick Lodolo is back and activated.
You said start to start. It was even like inning to inning on Wednesday afternoon's game, where like inning number 1, he struck out 2 guys and threw 15 pitches and went 1, 2, 3 against the 3 toughest hitters in the Rays lineup. And then he rolled out in the second inning and walked the first 2 guys and gave up a lot of hits. And it was like, what happened? And the easiest answer to all of this is he's still in rehab mode. As much as we need him to be in ready to compete, top of your game mode, we're still talking about a guy that's coming back from Tommy John surgery, who, if everything was equal, would be doing all of this in Louisville right now. He would not be doing this in Cincinnati. He would still be making those rehab starts. And so it's something that we need to know to understand why he is pitching the way that he is pitching. Because you're right, we see flashes of greatness and we see flashes of what we hope he can become, but then the other part of this shows up and he kind of gets clobbered a little bit. Like, that was the long and short of the Reds' loss on Wednesday afternoon. They didn't hit the ball very well. They made Nick Martinez feel really good about his reunion with his old ball club, because it just seemed as though they had never faced him before, even though he was a part of the team for 2 years. Like, how'd you not know what he was going to throw? Like, come on. So you kind of wonder a little bit about that, but this was all about the fact that the Reds got no pitching, or no good quality pitching from Brandon Williamson in this game. But you're right, the answer isn't very easy, because the answer is literally just patience. We have to wait on Nick Lodolo. Nick Lodolo is going to make a rehab start in Dayton on Sunday. And the most annoying part about this process is going to be what happens afterward. I don't care how good he looks in Dayton. All I care about is there a little blister on the end of that finger? And I looked at my right pointer finger. It's his left pointer finger. Is there a blister on the end of that finger the next day or even during the start on Sunday? Because if there isn't, good. And we'll see another rehab start. But if there is, oh boy.
I was just going to say, I think at a minimum, we're looking at him having to make 2 rehab starts with no issues before they even consider activating him. It has been a minute since he's really pitched. So he might even need 3. I'm not sure that it's going to be a quick process. If he can throw 2 and not have blisters, maybe you risk bringing him back. I'm not sure how I feel about that, because we all know that pitchers, even in rehab starts, don't pitch like they pitch when they're on a big league mound in the major leagues. There's a difference. So I'm real reluctant to say hurry back Nick Lodolo, but also maybe hurry back Nick Lodolo, because I don't know. Brandon Williamson, I think they need to put him in a situation to be successful where he can take a step back, because I truly believe there are some things that Brandon Williamson needs to work on. And you really just can't do that in season at the big league level. You get crushed. So getting him down to Louisville, letting him sort some things out, getting him ready, because he will be needed in July, August, September to help bridge innings, to get people pushed into a situation where they're available for a playoff baseball. So Brandon Williamson is going to be very, very important to this rotation moving forward. He needs the ability to go figure out what's going on. I commend him for even being at this point, really, because if all things being equal, if Lodolo doesn't develop that blister right at the end of spring training, Brandon Williamson doesn't make this team. I know there have been some talk about maybe he goes to the bullpen, maybe they use him as a long man. I think the Reds were always going to send him down, and then that opportunity just did not present itself. So Brandon Williamson needs an opportunity to get better. Nick Lodolo, on the other hand, it's not a mechanical issue. It's not an injury issue per se. It's just this persistent blister. So the 2 factors you're dealing with right now on these rehab starts is, can you make a start without getting another blister? And then you got to get him stretched back out, because right now I wouldn't expect more than 3 or 4 innings from Nick Lodolo at the big league level if you only give him a rehab start or 2. He's going to have to build back into this. Even if he has maintained a throwing program, he's not going to be able to give you 6 or 7 innings for at least a month, I would guess.
Yeah, your 5th starter spot, whether it's Brandon Williamson, because I think they need to change the expectation for what his starts look like on every 5th day basis, or if Nick Lodolo comes back, at least for his first couple of starts, I think the expectation needs to be that it's going to be a bullpen day plus. Like, instead of the starter only going 2 innings, maybe they go 3 or 4, but I really don't think it's fair to run Brandon Williamson out there and expect him to go 6 innings at this point. Like, they got to hope they get 4 good innings and then have Brock Burke ready to go, or have Connor Phillips ready to go, and have them bridge the gap to the next relief pitcher, because it feels like the Reds are able to stay in ball games when they get into their bullpen. And had they been a little bit more aggressive with this on the final day of the Rays series, there's a chance that they keep this much closer and maybe they can rally late. But it felt like after that second, or really after the 3rd inning, because the 3rd inning, Junior Caminero hit the solo shot, it really felt like after that point, that was it. And I know the Reds had a moment to rally in the 5th inning, and they could not come through with that. They had bases loaded, nobody out. They got 1 run out of that situation. But even before that point, it just kind of felt like the Rays had landed a haymaker, and the Reds really hadn't been able to counter from that thing. Let me ask you this, though, because I agree with you. I think that the only course of action really is patience. There is one guy, and he has major league experience. He was a non-roster invite that the Reds added in the offseason, that in Louisville right now, Davis Daniel, he has made 5 starts, and in those 5 starts, he has a whip, walks plus hits per innings pitched, of .99. So basically, as he has thrown 26 1/3 total innings in Louisville right now, he has allowed less than a base runner per inning. He also has more than a strikeout per inning. Would you entertain maybe sending down Brandon Williamson and calling up Davis Daniel, maybe even with the same idea that it's a bullpen plus start? Like, he gives you 3 or 4 innings and then you get into the bullpen, because I think that there's something to be said about the volatility of Brandon Williamson, and can you take that off off the Reds plate?
I honestly feel like that's 6 of one, half dozen of another. You look at Daniel's big league career, 3 big league seasons. He's made it to the majors, 2023, 2024, 2025, total of 12 big league games, 52 and 2/3 innings pitched, an ERA of 5.13 during that time. His strikeouts per 9, 7.9, his walks per 9, 3.8. So, I mean, if you just want to mix it up a little bit and maybe luck into a couple good starts out of a guy I suppose,
like, let's say Williamson has another start like he had on Wednesday, would you then go to
then maybe you consider just a change of send Brandon down to work on things and bring the other guy up. But I don't know that Daniel gives you anything where you make an immediate move. But if Brandon Williamson holds true, maybe the next start out is the good Brandon Williamson, and
sure.
It kind of kicks this can down the road a little bit longer, and then we'll be talking about the imminent return of Nick Lodolo, and that gives you different options. So if his next start is like this start, then yeah, I would consider it.
And honestly, if that's the case, then he's going to be doing that against Colorado in Cincinnati. Seems like a better shot to do that because the Rockies offense is only good in Coors. It's not very good on the road. So maybe he's got another shot to bounce back. But yeah, if you do have another rough pitching outing against the Rockies, I think it's worth considering, but I'm with you. I don't think that it's necessarily like, yes, Davis Daniel is the obvious answer, and don't know why they haven't done it yet. It's pretty similar. The Spider-Man meme, basically, Brandon Williamson, Davis Daniel right now. Is it really going to work? Probably not. But I know this, Steve. Moving into this weekend, it's going to be a fun weekend. We got Hall of Fame weekend on tap for the Cincinnati Reds with the Detroit Tigers coming into town. We're going to be celebrating Aaron Harang, Brandon Phillips, Lou Piniella, and Reggie Sanders all weekend long. But the Reds did something specifically for Brandon Phillips on Wednesday that is far, far, far past due. And it's great to see that he is finally getting what he deserves.
Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inboxes overflowing, and the one position that you have to fill is still sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for Sponsored Jobs. Indeed, Sponsored Jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for: skills, experience, location. So you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your posts. And here's the stat that says it all. In the minute that I'm going to be talking to you, companies like yours have made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed's data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all of your boxes with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Listeners of this show are going to get $75 in sponsored job credit to help you get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support Locked On Reds by saying you heard about Indeed on this show. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. You need to hire. This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs.
I invite you to connect with us after the show is over on social media. You can follow me on X and TikTok at Jeff Carr with 3 Fs. You can follow Steve on X at S. Offenbaker with 2 Fs. And you can follow the show on all of the social media accounts. That's at Locked On Reds. All right, Steve, this weekend is going to be a lot of fun because we're celebrating 4 very, very deserving Reds Hall of Famers, whether that's Aaron Harang, whether that's finally getting Reggie Sanders into the Reds Hall of Fame that has been far overdue, or whether that's getting Lou Piniella in there, or Brandon Phillips. That dude BP, who for a lot of Reds fans of a certain age is like their favorite player. And I know that was a fun answer, like, who's your favorite Red? Is it Joey Votto or is it Brandon Phillips? And then that kind of felt like the either or for a long time. But Brandon Phillips has so many great moments as a Red, had a good career as a Cincinnati Red, and he is being signed to a one-day contract on Saturday, and he will retire as a Cincinnati Red. It feels as though this is all things that make sense for a lot of different players that had careers similar to his with other teams, but it took the Reds a little bit longer to get to this point than I think Brandon Phillips deserved. I'm just glad to see that they are making things right, though.
Yeah, it took long enough for sure. There was a lot of behind the scenes things that went on between ownership and front office and Brandon, and that's all water under the bridge, all stuff in the past. I am glad to see them finally honoring him, much like honoring Reggie Sanders. Like, it took a long time, and it is about time. And I think the franchise is finally getting some of these things right. In the case of Brandon Phillips, this is a player that brought electricity. He brought electricity to the batter's box. He brought electricity to fielding his position. There's an argument for this, for a great offseason show, an argument for this, but probably the second best second baseman to play the position for this team. It's pretty close with him and a couple other guys, but obviously it's Joe Morgan and everybody else. But I think Brandon Phillips has a case to be the second best second baseman for this franchise during its history.
Yeah, I put a poll out on Twitter yesterday during the ball game, and I asked that question. I was like, is it Brandon Phillips or is it Big McPhee? And I probably missed like one other person in there somewhere. But like, Big McPhee is the argument to Brandon Phillips. But the problem with Big McPhee, for me, the problem with the argument for this is we're talking about a dude that played baseball 140 years ago. He played in the 1880s and 1890s. He played before gloves had webbing. He played before the World Series. And in half of his career as a Red was spent in the American Association, not even Major League Baseball. So, like, we're going way back into the deep, deep history of baseball when you're talking about Big McPhee. And there's a lot of fun stuff when you talk about that part and that era of Cincinnati Reds baseball. But for me, I feel as though it needs to be talked about in a separate, separate ecosphere or something, as opposed to modern baseball. Because, like, comparing what Brandon Phillips did for the Reds in his tenure and what Big McPhee did for the Reds in his tenure, like, Big McPhee has more WAR, Big McPhee's in the Hall of Fame, like all these other stuff. But, like, it's just so impossible to literally compare those careers because it's such a different ballgame.
And let's not forget that Brandon Phillips also punched Yadier Molina in the mouth, and that is probably the favorite thing.
That's worth at least 20 WAR by itself.
That's worth a bump in statistics, 100%. One of the
just to get his number retired for that.
Maybe. Now you're talking. Now you're talking, because it definitely warrants a statue. I don't know if it's going to get a number retired, but if I can get a statue of Brandon Phillips just absolutely knocking the snot out of Yadier Molina, I'll take that statue. Put it right next to the Joey Votto clock. And you've got the clock that's telling you time, and you got Brandon Phillips clocking Yadier Molina. I love it.
Yeah. No, that was a fun time too. Like, thinking about the time of when Yadier Molina was at Great American Ballpark, he got booed. And when Brandon Phillips was at Busch Stadium, he got booed, because there was such a very poignant rivalry between those two guys because of that fight. But overall, the way that those guys played against each other's teams was so fun to watch as well. Cause they were so good at just getting in on the other teams. But for me, Brandon Phillips, I think, is far and away the second best second baseman in Reds history. I don't even know that anyone will eclipse Joe Morgan. Joe Morgan was just so good at what he did. I don't know that even Sal can eclipse the WAR total. Expecting Sal to continue this upward trajectory with his bat, his glove will never be as good as Joe Morgan's was at second base. And so you'll never see somebody have as much wins above replacement in 1 year as Joe Morgan did. I think it was 1976. He had 9.7 WAR. That is an amazing.
1975, he had 11.
75
WAR.
Yeah, 75. He had 11. You're never going to get somebody that beats that number. Those seasons right there were just so far and away better than we'll ever see. So it's who's battling for second best second baseman ever, and for me, it's easily Brandon Phillips.
Yeah, you and I talked while we were prepping, is Brandon Phillips a candidate for number retirement? And you mentioned it there while we were talking about And I land in a no. The guys that have had their numbers retired are all baseball Hall of Fame, National Baseball Hall of Fame guys. But Brandon Phillips, 150% is a Reds Hall of Famer. Without question to me. I don't retire his number. He's not in the statue category. He's not in the retired number category, but he is 100% a Reds Hall of Famer. It's taken too long to get him there. I'm excited to see him around the ballpark this weekend, back embraced by the organization. The fans are going to have a great time out there, just with the sheer quality of players that are being inducted this year. I mean, you're talking about Sweet Lou. How many times this weekend do we get to watch the base toss? Because that is one of the greatest moments ever, is when Lou Piniella flung first base into right field. You've got Reggie Sanders, who, because he had a bad postseason, has been long overlooked and ignored by this franchise, and it's just not fair, and it's not right, and they're finally correcting that. So you've got people like that coming back in, Brandon Phillips coming back in, Aaron Harang coming back in, right? So this is a good time to celebrate, teams past, and with a current team that's playing really well. And it's going to be a fun time down at Great American Ballpark. If you haven't made plans to get down there, go down there. It's going to be a fun time. It's going to be worth the trip downtown. You're going to get
I'll be there on Saturday.
A tremendous celebration.
Yeah, I'll be there on Saturday. Looking forward to it. I was kind of hoping that the Reds were going to face Tariq Skubal. I'm sure that probably would have went poorly for the Reds, but I would have liked to have seen him pitch, but they're missing.
You can go watch him pitch in Detroit against somebody else.
Don't not driving up to Detroit. We got to go 30 minutes to Great American Ballpark. I would rather him be there.
You're not as big a fan as you say you are, then.
Of the Tigers? No, I'm not. But when it comes to this weekend, it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to be down there at the ballpark, see this Hall of Fame induction. We'll have you ready for the series. Until then, you can check out Locked On MLB with Sully, with Mike Stanton and Brett Chansey on Back to the Bullpen, with the guys over at Locked On MLB Game Night. We got 3 different shows covering the league over on the Locked On MLB channel. And if you're watching here on YouTube, make sure you hang on. We'll send you to Locked On's 24/7 feed covering all the biggest news in all of sports. Probably somebody's going to be talking good about Dexter Lawrence going to Cincinnati because, well, that was a dang good trade. And if they ain't doing it on the 24/7 feed, go check out Locked On Bengals, because I know Jake and James is talking about it pretty much every day. I mean, why wouldn't you? That's an amazing trade. But we're super happy with all of that stuff, because as for Steve and myself and Tim Daniel on the postcast as well, we'll be Locked On Reds every single day.
Conspiracy theory, hear me out. The Reds sent Noelvi Marte down so that number 4 would be available.
I mean, it makes sense. I don't know that they trade him or anything like that, because I heard that conspiracy theory, but that makes sense.
Yeah, nobody's wearing number 4.
Connecting dots. That's what we do.